Anyhow, so what I was saying was that there are actually three distinct ages of evil before the time of Adam, and this modern age, which we can call the age of man. Okay, although the sons of God are very much creatures like man, as we also read in Genesis chapter 6 verse 4 and verse 2, that they were attracted physically to women and they were able to have relations with them, even produce offspring, which, by the way, the Bible tells us they were men, says nothing about them being Nephilim or anything like that. Okay, that some of these evil sons of God, their judgment came before the judgment of Satan. So all three fathers of evil, three ages of evil, three fathers of evil, and they were all judged prior to the creation of man, prior to God making Adam and Eve and putting them in the Garden of Eden, in which there was a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So this knowledge, this book of evil, had to be fully written, and it was written to these three fathers of evil. One was the race of angels led by the anointed cherub. The other one was the races of these sons of God, whose most famous, whose face is Lucifer. And lastly is this age of beasts, you could say, the reptilian serpentine beasts, and they are represented by Satan. Okay, so the time just prior to Genesis chapter 1 verse 2, in which this entire earth up into the heavens is covered with water. There is complete darkness. That beautiful sun that's shining here today wasn't in the sky. Okay, darkness was covering all. Darkness being symbolic of evil, it tells us that that darkness had now become absolute, and that's, my friends, is Satan. Okay, neither the anointed cherub nor Lucifer were absolutely evil. Okay, they were not complete darkness. God had to wait until full darkness had come before he was going to make man, because that darkness was going to be very necessary and useful for him. So this story of the previous age is divided after the age of creation, when evil entered, decay and deterioration and entropy enters creation. That part can be divided, that complete age of evil before man can be divided into three ages: one of the angels, one of the sons of God, and one of these reptilian serpents. So we have these temples. Okay, they are built all over the world, wherever you go, and especially in India. And many of these temples in India, they are, something to behold, because of the artwork that is in them, the size and dimensions of these places. They could not possibly have been made by anybody from the race of Adam. They were not built in these modern times. Okay, so this race of angels these temples were built by the reptilian serpents, the Naga people, who actually ruled this earth just prior to the time of this great flood, which covered the earth and went up into the heavens, destroyed the heavens that existed at that time. Sorry, almost dropped this here, and brought this darkness. And God's Spirit is hovering over that darkness, and God is surveying the damage, and he's saying, okay, now the time is right. Now I'm going to make the creature, which is going to be the apple of my eye, that creature upon whom I'm going to shower all my love. Okay, that's time has now come, because darkness is full. The iniquity, evil, is reached its completeness that I needed it to do. Evil being the opposite of good, Satan being an opposer, the opposite of God. God's opposite had now come into existence. God is light, darkness had now come into existence. So God was going to place man in between the middle of the light and the darkness, in between good and evil, in between life and death. Death had already come, which was the most important thing. Death had to exist before man was made. So God said, now I'm going to place man in the middle between these two, and then I'm going to teach him both. I'm going to teach him life because he will understand death. I'm going to teach him good because he will understand evil by doing evil. He will understand light because he has now seen darkness. When darkness came, God is light, so light has always existed and will always exist. But his creatures did not have the knowledge of light because they hadn't seen darkness yet. So when darkness came, now the knowledge of light began. It became possible to share with man the knowledge of light. Okay, that's what happened. All right, so that's what the story is. That all these temples, this world whose ruins are still existing today, is not even necessarily now. When we talk about these serpent people, these Naga people, the world that they had in that day, in the age before Adam, that built these massive temples, and they worshipped everywhere on this earth. They were not the only inhabitants. There were still some of these sons of God and everything, all creatures that existed, that coexisted with them. There were giants that coexisted with them. So they were all coexisting in a very sci-fi-like world, okay? There are these hybrids. There's all kinds of creatures that existed. The chief of those were the serpents. They became the chief. Because even in India, like a god like Shiva was very much a humanoid. He always has these serpents wrapped around his head. Always Vishnu, whatever, Brahma, they're always found in the presence of serpents. So basically, this serpent had then taken over the baton of evil from Lucifer, who had taken it over from the angels. From the angels it passed to Lucifer, it passed to Satan in the age before Adam. And when this evil had reached the depths, sunk to the depths that God needed it to be, so that God could say this is absolute now, that's when the judgment of that world came, okay? Whose ruins we see up until this day. A lot of those temples, they still exist in India, for example, and they are filled with these imagery in Cambodia. In Cambodia, they have this legend that the first king, or actually was a queen, or maybe a transvestite or something, that it was a serpent. It was a Naga person, okay? In some of these temples in India, they have these imagery of these serpent people, serpents coming out of the earth and then transforming into something kind of, people, shape-shifting, okay? All this is not fiction, this is all real. But the point is that that age that ended, the age of evil, it ended with the serpents, with Satan. That's why the serpent imagery is everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. So when the end of that age came and God decided to judge it, he then destroyed these creatures, these machines, whatever they were, whatever their composition is, he destroyed them. He destroyed that world completely with the flood, which is the flood of Satan. And like I said, there is no association of a flood with Lucifer. However, with Satan there is, because in Revelation 12 it tells us the serpent cast out water out of his mouth like a flood. Okay? So this flood that existed in Genesis chapter 1 verse 2, that destroyed the world that then existed, which we read about in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 7, was the world of Satan. It was not the world of Lucifer. Lucifer had already been cast out, and after some point in time after that, Satan takes over, begins to build all these temples all over, these serpent temples, wherever you go, up on the earth, inside the earth, under the waters, everywhere. Everywhere. And that evidence is so much on this earth that that is the only explanation that fits. So then, when he is destroyed, he himself is, probably continues to exist now, which God allowed him to exist, as a disembodied spirit. That those lost inhabitants that were in that world before this judgment of Satan came, they have now allowed to continue and exist as in disembodied form as evil spirits. They are still around because God is still using them for his purposes. It is quite possible that inside this very earth these Naga, serpent people, and other creatures, even in corporeal form, still continue to exist. Because when the flood came, it destroyed everything that was on the surface, but there are worlds inside. Like I said, the earth is like a building with stories, and some of these stories were not destroyed by the flood, and that again served God's purposes. Hell, for example, was not destroyed because we know it's still there. But hell was not made in the time of Adam. It has existed a long time before then. The bottomless pit, all these places have continued to exist over the ages. So this is the correct piecing together of the ages of creation. The age of evil can be divided into the Silver Age, which was the age of the angels and of the sons of God. After that came the Bronze Age, the second age of evil, which would be the age of Luciferians and the serpentine Naga people, led by Satan. And then after that world had been destroyed, Adam and Eve had been made, and this world was given to Adam, who handed it back to Satan. This is the Iron Age. That's the correct chronology of creation, which I have pieced together, and I would like to correct that the flood that came prior to the time of Adam was not the flood of Lucifer, it was the flood of Satan.
What Nagas are, if you will, right? They're not snakes, right? That's clear. They're also not human, but they're a completely different species or a race. All ancient civilizations mention them. They mention them as the very first queen or king of their civilization. Many people argue that if you go to Nagaland, they'll probably confirm your theory. We descended from the Nagas. If you go to Sri Lanka, they maintain that they descended from the Nagas. And we can, of course, dismiss this as a pure mythology, right? Oh, a Naga, like starting a civilization in Cambodia, right? But if you go to a place called Angkor Bore, nobody goes to this place. This is like 2 hours away from the capital of Cambodia. Nobody goes there. It's completely in ruins. It's kind of a rough, dark place. But you can see ruins that are 2,000 years old. Some are even saying that it's like 3,000, 4,000 years old. Okay? And we can see evidences of Hinduism. And you'll see Nagas all over the place, as though the Nagas founded that empire.
So again, this is a short clip from a video titled Nagas, Powerful Humanoids That Lived Amongst Us by a man being interviewed. His name is Praveen Mohan. He's an Indian man here in India where I am at the moment. And, he goes around to all the ancient temples and, shows some good footage of, these ancient buildings and such. And, he is right in this here that the reason why this Naga or the serpent is everywhere is because the civilization or the ruler of evil just prior to the flood, which we read about in Genesis, Genesis 1-2, it tells us that, darkness was by the face of the deep. Okay, the deep was covering the entire earth. And the waters are reaching up not just above the mountains as it did in the days of Noah. It was reaching right up into the heavens. So this massive flood had come, which had destroyed the world then. But that world was the world on whose the dominant race at that time was this serpent people race. And that is why their evidence, their constructions, their imagery is everywhere. Ruins that go back thousands of years, because that's where they are from. And once, Satan was given, the serpent dragon was given authority in this world again by Adam and the Garden of Eden, then that imagery has continued in modern, religious practices and rituals and worships among the pagan religions of the world, everywhere. And it was not difficult because it was just picked up from where it was left off just before the flood. And it's the same thing that we find over and over and over again, which proves to us clearly that the Bible teaches that it is the serpent who was the ruler, the chief of the last age of evil prior to the making of Adam, and his evil continues into this age, and it will continue until the time after the millennial reign of Jesus Christ, when the serpent dragon will finally be cast into the lake of fire, and evil will be no more. There'll be no more ages of evil after that. So that's the history of the future, which has already been written in the Bible. So that's what I recommend, that you read and study it, and hopefully these videos help you in your own understanding better the history of creation of the past ages.
If you don't mind waiting, I think I'll slowly walk your way. You seem to know him when you start preaching, and you just may. Don't want no bells to toll, just want the clouds and me to roll away. You claim this Jesus will come and dine with me if I just pray. I don't know where I'm going, I just can't carry on. I need a change of pace, I'm running out of space. I need Jesus, Jesus right now. I got down on my knees and prayed that God would help me believe. I whispered to the wind, please Jesus help me win victory from sin. I prayed he'd cleanse my heart and have a brand new start working with him. I felt the Holy Ghost and knew the God of hosts was my true friend. I don't know where I'm going, I just can't carry on. I need a change of pace, I'm running out of space. I need Jesus, Jesus right now.